Well, good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday. Welcome to another episode of Inspiration for Today. This week, I hope you saw yesterday, but this week we are looking at the top 5, granted, in my opinion, of the worship scene, top 5 grandest or most important worship scenes in all the Bible. We're doing that because we're leading up to a very special worship time this coming Sunday at Saddleback Church, Laguna Woods. And I just thought it'd be fun to see in the Bible, what are the 5 greatest times of worship? And we talked yesterday about Noah and how he did such good worship at a momentous time in his life. But today, well, let me actually, before I even say what this particular moment of worship was, and it's spectacular, let me give you the verse for the day. And it comes from Psalm 149 at verse 3. Let them praise his name with dancing and make music to him with tambourine and harp. And I love that verse. I love that verse because dancing can be a form of worship if you're dancing as unto the Lord. You ever done that? I think I've done that a few times where the song has just really put me in the mood for dancing. Well, our time today in the Bible is one of the great examples of that, where, and I'll tell you, it's King David danced before the Lord. And we'll get to that, but what's the occasion? What's the time of worship? It's the time when David brought the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. And he had built a tent for it, and the whole nation, it seems like, was there celebrating this momentous event of bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. Now, the obvious question that some would have, well, what is the Ark of the Covenant? And why was it so important? Well, the Ark of the Covenant was viewed as the holiest, and the symbol of God himself. It had been with it, they had built it according to God's instructions. It was the holder inside this container, which, by the way, when they moved it, they couldn't even touch it. There's an occasion in the Bible where somebody reached out his hand to steady the Ark of the Covenant so it wouldn't fall. But that was going against what God had instructed them. And remember what happened to him? He died on the spot. Well, it doesn't take many events like that for the Israelites to realize this is a very, very special. And inside that box, well, it was the holder of the 10 Commandments that God himself had written on the tablets of stone. Wow. Can you imagine having the actual tablets that God himself touched and inscribed with the 10 Commandments? And on top of that, we learn from the book of Hebrews that it also held Aaron's staff and a container of manna, which of course was reminding the Israelites of God's provision in the wilderness. So it was very, very, very special. And celebrate they did. And really, just like Psalm 149 said, let them praise his name with dancing and make music to him with tambourine and harp. So if you have your Bible, and if you want to turn there, I'll read some parts of it, but I can't go into the detail of all the praising. But it's in 1 Chronicles chapter 15. After David had constructed the buildings for himself in the city of David, he prepared a place for the ark of God and pitched a tent for it. And then David said, no one but the Levites may carry the ark, because the Lord chose them to carry before the Lord and minister to them. So, verse 14. So the priests and Levites consecrated themselves in order to bring up the ark of God, the God of Israelites. And they carried it on the ark with the poles on their shoulders, and Moses had commanded. And then here we go. David told the leaders of the Levites to appoint their brothers as singers to sing joyful songs accompanied by musical instruments, lyres, harps, and cymbals, just like Psalms said. If you have time today, turn to 1 Chronicles 15 sometime, and the rest of the chapter just talks about all the detail and all the singing and all that went into that tremendous celebration as they bring that ark into Jerusalem. What a time of celebration. In fact, look at verse 28, chapter 15, says, "So all Israel brought up the ark of the covenant of the Lord with shouts, with sounding of ram's horns and trumpets and of cymbals and the playing of lyres and harps." So they did exactly what they said. And it talks about in verse 29, and they all saw David dancing and celebrating. Wow. David danced. He was so excited about the Lord. He was so excited about the Lord and this tremendous celebration. By bringing the ark, it was as if they were bringing God to their city. And man, it just goes on and on and on. And they did. They set it up inside the tent, 16 verse 1, and that David had pitched. And they presented burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before God. And on it talks about the sacrifices. It was a wonderful time. In fact, they even talk about who played each instrument. Can you imagine? That goes into the Bible, who played each instrument. The guys named Benaniah and Jezreel, the priests, were to blow trumpets regularly before the ark of the covenant of God. I think that deserves to be in the top 5. When we're not going in any particular order, well, actually we're going in order of the Bible, but we're not ranking them. But I sure think this top is in the top 5 of those great celebrations that God, that were of God. I really do. How could it not? And then if you're looking in your Bible, in verse 8, it writes out a song. It says they committed day 7 as this song basically of thanks to the Lord. And then it's a tremendous, what we would almost call a psalm. Not in the book of Psalms, but a psalm that David wrote. And some of that is still sung to this day. Verse 28 of chapter 16 says, ascribe to the Lord the glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. That song is so great, it's still sung today. Let's close with that. And I'll see you back tomorrow for an unbelievable time of worship. Okay. See you tomorrow.